Oh yeah, we're gonna do this thing.
10 investors have opportunity to lead Tempus AI, Inc. Securities fraud lawsuit with the Shaw Law Firm. PR Newswire. The Shaw Law Firm, a national shareholder rights litigation firm, reminds investors of a class action lawsuit against Tempus AI, Inc. Tempus, or the company, Nasdaq, Temp for violations of Sections 10b and 28 of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 and Rule 10b-5 promulgated thereunder by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Investors who purchased the company's securities between August 6, 2024 and May 27, 2025, inclusive the class period, are encouraged to contact the firm before August 12, 2025. If you are a shareholder who suffered a loss, click here to participate. We also encourage you to contact Brian Shaloff, the Shaw Law Firm, 2049 Century Park East, Suite 2460, Los Angeles, California, 90067, at 310-301-3335. To discuss your rights free of charge. You can also reach us through the firm's website at www.shalfirm.com or by email at bshal@shalfirm.com. The class, in this case, has not yet been certified, and until certification occurs, you are not represented by an attorney. If you choose to take no action, you can remain an absent class member. According to the complaint, the company made false and misleading statements to the market. Tempus overinflated the value of various contracts, including deals with related parties and self-funded agreements. The company's joint venture with SoftBank was at risk of being discredited because of the appearance of round-tripping capital to create revenue. The company acquired Ambry, known for its aggressive and potentially unethical business practices. Based on these facts, the company's public statements were false and materially misleading throughout the class period. When the market learned the truth about Tempus, investors suffered damages. Join the case to recover your losses. The Shaw Law Firm represents investors around the world and specializes in securities class action lawsuits and shareholder rights litigation. This press release may be considered attorney advertising in some jurisdictions under the applicable law and rules of ethics. Contact the Shaw Law Firm, Brian Shaw, Esq. www.shalfirm.com. Office 310-301-3335.
Fuck you.
info@shalfirm.com. Source the Shaw Law Firm. Want your company's NEWSFEATURED on PR Newswire. Com. 440K plus. Newsrooms and influencers. 9K plus. Digital media outlets. 270K plus. Journalists opted in.
Of artificial intelligence. The cases are from authors, news outlets, visual artists, musicians, and other copyright owners. They accuse OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta platforms, and other technology companies of using their work to train chatbots and other AI-based content generators without permission or payment. Courts will likely begin hearing arguments starting next year on whether the defendants' copying amounts to fair use. That could be the AI copyright war's defining legal question. Tech companies have argued that their AI systems make fair use of copyrighted material, and that they study it to create new transformative content. Copyright owners, though, say the companies unlawfully copy their works to generate rival content that threatens their livelihoods. OpenAI, Meta, Silicon Valley investment firm Andreessen Horowitz warn that being forced to pay copyright holders for their content could cripple the burgeoning US AI industry. Some content owners began voluntary licensing their material.
Tech companies face tough AI copyright questions in 2025. Reuters. December 27. Reuters. The new year may bring pivotal developments in a series of copyright lawsuits that could shape the future business of artificial intelligence. The lawsuits from authors, news outlets, visual artists, musicians, and other copyright owners accuse OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta Platforms Meta, Opens new tab, and other technology companies of using their work to train chatbots and other AI-based content generators without permission or payment. Get a quick look at the day's breaking legal news and analysis from the afternoon docket newsletter. Sign up here. Courts will likely begin hearing arguments starting next year on whether the defendants' copying amounts to fair use, which could be the AI copyright wars. Defining legal question. Tech companies have argued that their AI systems make fair use of copyrighted material by studying it to learn to create new, transformative content. Copyright owners counter that the companies unlawfully copy their works to generate rival content that threatens their livelihoods. OpenAI, Meta, Silicon Valley investment firm Andreessen Horowitz and others sworn that being forced to pay copyright holders for their content could cripple the burgeoning U.S. AI industry. Some content owners began voluntarily licensing their material to tech companies this year, including Reddit, News Corp, and THE Financial Times. Reuters licensed its articles to Meta in October. Other copyright holders, such as major record labels, The New York Times and several best-selling authors continued to press their claims or filed new lawsuits in 2024. AI companies could escape U.S. copyright liability completely if the courts agree with them on the fair use question. Judges hearing the cases in different jurisdictions could reach conflicting conclusions on fair use and other issues, and multiple rounds of appeals are likely. An ongoing dispute between Thomson Reuters and former legal research competitor Ross Intelligence could provide an early indication of how judges will treat fair use arguments. Thomson Reuters, the parent company of Reuters News, alleged that Ross misused copyrighted material from its legal research platform Westlaw to build an AI-powered legal search engine. Ross denied wrongdoing, invoking fair use. U.S. Circuit Judge Stefanos Bibas said last year that he could not decide before a jury trial whether Ross made fair use of the content. But Bibas canceled the scheduled trial and heard new fair use arguments in November, which could lead to a new ruling on the issue next year. Another early fair use indicator could come in a dispute between music publishers and Anthropic over the use of their song lyrics to train its chatbot Claude. U.S. District Judge Jacqueline Corley is considering fair use as part of the publisher's request for a preliminary injunction against the company. Corley held oral arguments over the proposed injunction last month. In November, U.S. District Judge Colleen McMahon in New York dismissed a case from news outlets Raw Story and Alternet against OpenAI, finding that they failed to show they were injured by OpenAI's alleged copyright violations. The outlets' cases differ from most of the other lawsuits because they accused OpenAI of illegally removing copyright management information from their articles instead of directly infringing their copyrights. But other cases could also end without a determination on fair use if judges decide that copyright owners were unharmed by the use of their work in AI training. Reporting by Blake Britton in Washington. Our standards, the Thomson Reuters Trust Principles. Opens new tab. Blake Britton reports on intellectual property law, including patents, trademarks, copyrights and trade secrets, for Reuters Legal. He has previously written for Bloomberg Law and Thomson Reuters Practical Law and practiced as an attorney.
Material to tech companies this year, including Reddit, News Corp and the Financial Times. Reuters licensed its articles to Meta in
We'll discuss that maybe a different day, but we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means. I use trade for a lot of things, but it's great for settling wars. It's a horrible war, and it should be stopped. And so if it's not done, if we don't have an agreement in 50 days, that's what we're doing, secondary tariffs. And they're biting, and I hope we don't get to the point where we do, but I've been hearing so much talk. It's all talk. It's all talk, and then missiles go into Kiev. You're very unhappy, I am, with Russia, but we'll do.
In reversal, Trump arms Ukraine and threatens sanctions on countries that buy Russian oil. Reuters. Trump threatens secondary sanctions on Russia in 50 days. Says up to 17 Patriot batteries could be available very soon. Russian markets rise, suggesting relief over delay. Kyiv, Washington, July 14. Reuters, U.S. President Donald Trump announced new weapons for Ukraine on Monday and threatened to hit buyers of Russian exports with sanctions unless Russia agrees a peace deal in 50 days. A major shift in policy brought on by frustration with Moscow. Sitting side by side with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte in the Oval Office, Trump told reporters that he was disappointed in Russian President Vladimir Putin. Billions of dollars in weapons would be distributed to Ukraine, he said. The Reuters Tariff Watch newsletter is your daily guide to the latest global trade and tariff news. Sign up here. We're going to make top-of-the-line weapons, and they'll be sent to NATO, Trump said, adding that Washington's NATO allies would pay for the weapons. The weapons would include Patriot air defense missiles, which Ukraine has urgently sought to defend its cities from Russian airstrikes. It's a full complement with the batteries, Trump said. We're going to have some come very soon, within days. A couple of the countries that have Patriots are going to swap over and will replace the Patriots with the ones they have. Some or all of 17 Patriot batteries ordered by other countries could be sent to Ukraine, very quickly, he said. His threat to impose so-called secondary sanctions on Russia, if carried out, would be a major shift in Western sanctions policy. Lawmakers from both political parties in the United States are pushing for a bill that would authorize such measures, targeting other countries that buy Russian oil. Throughout the more than 3-year-old war, Western countries have cut off most of their own financial ties to Moscow, but have held back from taking steps that would restrict Russia from selling its oil elsewhere. That has allowed Moscow to continue earning hundreds of billions of dollars from shipping oil to buyers such as China and India. We're going to be doing secondary tariffs, Trump said. If we don't have a deal in 50 days, it's very simple, and they'll be at 100%. A White House official said Trump was referring to 100% tariffs on Russian goods as well as secondary sanctions on other countries that buy its exports. Grace period. Still, Trump's announcement of a 50-day grace period was greeted with relief by investors in Russia, where the ruble recovered from earlier losses and stock markets rose. Item 1 of 2A launcher of a Patriot air defense system of the Ukrainian Air Forces is seen on the ground, amid Russia's attack on Ukraine. In an undisclosed location, Ukraine August 4, 2024. Reuters Valentin Ogarenko file photo. 1/2 a launcher of a Patriot air defense system of the Ukrainian Air Forces is seen on the ground, amid Russia's attack on Ukraine, in an undisclosed location. Ukraine August 4, 2024. Reuters Valentin, purchase licensing rights. Opens new tab, read more. Trump performed below market expectations. He gave 50 days during which the Russian leadership can come up with something and extend the negotiation track. Moreover, Trump likes to postpone and extend such deadlines, said analyst Artyom Nikolaev from Investera, a financial information firm. Trump, who returned to power this year promising a quick end to the war, said his shift was motivated by increasing frustration with Putin, who, he said, had talked about peace but continued to strike Ukrainian cities. We actually had probably 4 times a deal. And then the deal wouldn't happen because bombs would be thrown out that night and you'd say we're not making any deals, Trump said. Since returning to the White House, Trump has sought rapprochement with Moscow, speaking several times with Putin. His administration has pulled back from pro-Ukrainian policies such as backing Kyiv's membership in NATO and demanding Russia withdraw from all Ukrainian territory. But so far, Putin has yet to accept a proposal from Trump for an unconditional ceasefire, which was quickly endorsed by Kyiv. Recent days have seen Russia use hundreds of drones to attack Ukrainian cities. Trump vented his frustration last week, saying, "We get a lot of bullshit." Opens new tab. Thrown at us by Putin. Earlier on Monday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held talks with Trump's envoy Keith Kellogg. Zelensky said he had discussed the path to peace and what we can practically do together to bring it closer, including strengthening Ukraine's air defense, joint production and procurement of defense weapons in collaboration with Europe. An air raid alert was declared in Kyiv shortly after Zelensky's talks with Kellogg took place. Separately on Monday, Zelensky said he would replace his long-serving prime minister, Denis S.H. Shmyhal, with Shmyhal's first deputy, Yulia Sviridenko, in a transformation of the executive branch. Her appointment will require parliamentary approval. Sviridenko, 39, is an economist and has previously served as Minister of Economic Development and Trade and as deputy head of Zelensky's office. She played a key role in negotiations between Kyiv and Washington on a minerals deal. Russia, which began its full-scale invasion in February 2022, holds about 1/5 of Ukraine. Its forces are slowly advancing in eastern Ukraine and Moscow shows no sign of abandoning its main war goals. Additional reporting by Frank Jack Daniel in Kyiv, Kevin Lamarck in Washington, Sabine Siebold in Berlin and Lydia Kelly in Warsaw. Writing by Timothy Heritage and Peter Graff, editing by Gareth Jones and Andrew Heavens. Our standards, the Thomson Reuters Trust Principles. Opens new tab. Anastasia Malenko is a journalist covering breaking news in Ukraine. She writes about key political and economic developments in daily stories about the war. In her feature reporting, Anastasia focuses on how the war reshapes the Ukrainian society. She also examines military strategies and developments through battlefield analysis.
We'll discuss that maybe a different day, but we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means.
Ukraine's Zelensky taps Deputy PM Sviridenko for Prime Minister. Reuters. Subscribe to Reuters to continue reading. Unlimited access to Reuters globally trusted news. Final price $1.50 per week. Charge is $6 Australian in advance every 4 weeks. Ukraine's Zelensky taps Deputy PM Sviridenko for Prime Minister. By Reuters, July 15, 20,251. OOMGMT plus 10 updated 3 hours ago. Kyiv, July 14, Reuters. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky asked First Deputy Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko on Monday to lead a new government, setting the stage for a political reshuffle as prospects for an end to Ukraine's war with Russia grow dim. The nomination, which requires parliamentary approval, comes as diplomatic efforts to end the war, now in its 4th year, have stalled and as Ukraine seeks to revive its cash-strapped economy and build up a domestic arms industry. The Reuters Daily Briefing newsletter provides all the news you need to start your day. Sign up here. We discussed concrete measures to boost Ukraine's economic potential, expand support programs for Ukrainians, and scale up our domestic weapons production, Zelensky wrote on X. In pursuit of this goal, we are initiating a transformation of the executive branch in Ukraine, he said, adding that he had proposed that Sviridenko lead the government and significantly renew its work. Sviridenko, 39, is an economist by training and has served as first deputy prime minister since 2021. She played a key role in recent negotiations for a minerals deal with the United States. Ukraine relies on financial aid from its Western allies to finance social and humanitarian spending as the bulk of state revenues go to fund the army and domestic weapons production. Ukrainian officials have also urged Kyiv's partners to help finance the country's arms industry, including through joint defense projects. Writing on X, Sviridenko said she would pursue deregulation, cut back bureaucracy, protect business and reduce non-critical expenditure to achieve the full concentration of state resources for defense and post-war recovery. The state apparatus has no right to waste the resources and potential of our country, she said. Ukraine deserves to be among the strongest economies in Europe. Ukraine's current prime minister, Denis Shmyhal, has held the post since March 2020, making him the longest-serving head of government since the country gained its independence from Moscow in 1991 amid the collapse of the Soviet Union. Reporting by Dan Pelishuk, writing by Dan Pelishuk, editing by Kevin Liffey and Gareth Jones. Our standards, the Thomson Reuters Trust Principles. Opens new tab. Wall Street edges up as investors await economic reports. Reuters. Subscribe to Reuters to continue reading. Unlimited access to Reuters globally trusted news. Final price $1.50 per week. Charge is $6 in advance every 4 weeks. You can cancel anytime. Wall Street edges up as investors await economic reports. July 15, 20,254, 21 a.m. GMT plus 10 updated 28 minutes ago. Index is up. Dow 0.14%, S&P 500 0.15%, Nasdaq 0.34%. Nasdaq on course for record closing high. Crypto stocks jump as Bitcoin hits $123,000 mark. Waters to merge with Becton's diagnostics arm, shares fall. July 14, Reuters. Wall Street stocks edged higher on Monday, with investors shrugging off another round of tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump and holding firm on convictions ahead of a busy week of economic data and the start of earnings season. Trump ramped up trade tensions over the weekend, vowing to slap a 30% tariff on most imports from the European Union and Mexico starting August 1, leaving the clock ticking for last-minute trade deals. The Reuters Tariff Watch newsletter is your daily guide to the latest global trade and tariff news. Sign up here. The EU extended its pause on retaliatory measures until early August, holding out hope for a negotiated truce. The White House said talks with the EU, Canada and Mexico are still underway. Despite the headlines, investor reaction was muted, having grown numb to Trump's barrage of tariff threats and his frequent last-minute U-turns. Markets have been buoyant in recent weeks, even as Trump has rattled his tariff saber, with both the S&P 500, SPX, opens new tab, and Nasdaq Composite, IXIC, opens new tab, hitting record highs last week. While gains were modest on Monday, the Nasdaq Composite was on course to post a fresh high mark. Looming on the horizon though is a raft of new reports on the state of the U.S. economy. Second quarter earnings season kicks off this week, with a number of Wall Street's banking heavyweights set to report on Tuesday. Tuesday is also the scheduled release of the latest consumer price data, which is expected to reveal an inflation uptick in June as sellers started passing on the cost of sweeping tariffs. Wednesday's producer and import price reports will offer fresh insight into how supply chain pressures are shaping up. It is a pause ahead of really big news, which is CPI and earnings. Nobody wants to get offside ahead of the big news, said Jay Hatfield at Infrastructure Capital Advisors. They just hold their positions and wait. As of 1:51 p.m. ET, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, DJI, opens new tab, rose 61.61 points, or 0.14%, to 44,434.36. The S&P 500, SPX, opens new tab. Gained 9.61 points, or 0.15%, at 6,269.36, and the Nasdaq Composite, IXIC, opens new tab. Advanced 68.60 points, or 0.34%, to 20,654.70. 5 of the 11 S&P sectors were in positive territory. Communication Services, SPLRCL, opens new tab. Led the way, helped by gains in Netflix, NFLX, opens new tab, which reports earnings on Thursday, as well as Warner Brothers. Discovery less than WBD, greater than, whose latest Superman. Caper had a strong opening weekend at the box office. Of the decliners, the Energy Index, SPNY, opens new tab, was hardest hit, down 1.3% as crude prices slipped from a near 3-week high. Chip stocks came under pressure, with BlockFi administrator, DOJ agreed to end $35 million lawsuit, details. Motion Megi, the bankruptcy plan administrator of crypto lending firm BlockFi, and the U.S. Department of Justice DOJ have agreed to end a lawsuit centered around a $35 million asset transfer. This announcement marks the latest chapter in BlockFi's bankruptcy saga, which began with the Black Swan events of November 2022. BlockFi versus DOJ, peace at last. In May 2023, the DOJ sought to effect a transfer of $35 million worth of assets in BlockFi accounts to the U.S. government. Notably, DOJ representatives claimed these funds belonged to 2 Estonian nationals involved in a fraud case and had obtained legal warrants to assert ownership of these illicit proceeds. However, BlockFi is currently undergoing a bankruptcy process following the monumental collapse of $32 billion crypto exchange FTX in November 2022. The crypto lending firm famously filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy some days after this seismic event due to its level of financial exposure to FTX, valued at $1.03 billion in unpaid loans. Therefore, a group of unsecured creditors issued a lawsuit against the DOJ claiming that such transfers could impact potential asset recoveries. Meanwhile, the DOJ argued that the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the District of New Jersey, at which the case had been filed, could not neutralize the government's claims to these assets. 2 years following this lawsuit, Megi and the DOJ have agreed to terminate all legal proceedings around the proposed $35 million asset transfer. The joint resolution was brought before Judge Michael B. Kaplan of the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the District of New Jersey on Friday, July 11, who approved the case on the day. Notably, both parties agreed to dismiss the case with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. Meanwhile, each party is expected to bear its own legal fees and costs. Following its bankruptcy filing in 2022, BlockFi reportedly owed 100,000 creditors an estimated $10 billion, including major debts to prominent names such as Ancora Trust, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, and defunct hedge fund Three Arrows. Crypto market overview. In other news, the total crypto market is valued at $3.64 trillion following a 0.17% gain in the past day. Bitcoin, the maiden cryptocurrency, retains an unrivaled 63.9% market dominance, boasting of total market share valued at $2.33 trillion. Interestingly, the crypto market enters a crucial week as the U.S. House of Representatives is expected to debate 3 important legislations: the Clarity Act, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, and the Senate's Genius Act, as part of efforts to establish a credible regulatory framework that encourages digital asset adoptions and protect user interest. Disclaimer: for information purposes only. Past performance is not indicative of future results.
Shit. Fuck. That hit the point in the nail, didn't it? Sorry?
XAI secures a contract with the U.S. Department of Defense, launches Grok for government. XAI, Elon Musk's artificial intelligence company, has secured a contract with the U.S. Department of Defense and launched Grok for government, a specialized version of its chatbot platform tailored for federal use. The announcement was made on Monday through Musk's social media platform, X. The adoption of AI is transforming the department's ability to support our warfighters and maintain strategic advantage over our adversaries. Doug Mattey, the DOD's chief digital and AI officer. The firm has announced that Grok's government-centric products are now available under the Government Services Administration (GSA) schedule. This authorization allows any U.S. federal department or agency to buy and incorporate Grok AI models into their functions. The announcement is in line with the Trump administration, which has recently spurred federal AI adoption. This comes after a controversy that involved Grok. The chatbot was criticized due to its creation of anti-Semitic responses and references to Hitler during a politically charged conversation. xAI countered it by releasing a significant update and responding that the latest version of its developed model has improved safeguards and leading-edge capabilities. Musk's federal influence and internal AI strategy. Earlier this year, Musk briefly led the U.S. DOGE service, changing the nature of his role in government interactions with technology. In May, he stepped down from running the administration, but has continued to be influential in his activities in AI and space. Grok in government appears after a wave of rumors about the incorporation of xAI into the wider portfolio of Musk-owned firms. He recently dismissed combining xAI with Tesla, but Musk has been pressuring Tesla to invest in the AI business. He said such a move would require shareholder approval and also a vote of the board. The announcement of Grok in government comes after a mania of speculation around how Musk will incorporate xAI into his wider portfolio of companies. He recently dismissed combining xAI with Tesla, but Musk has been pressuring Tesla to invest in the AI business. He said such a move would require shareholder approval and a board vote. SpaceX commits $2 billion to xAI expansion. While Tesla remains on the sidelines, SpaceX seems to be intensifying. A recent Wall Street Journal report showed that Musk, through his space exploration company, will be investing $2 billion in xAI. The funding is anticipated to be used to facilitate research, model development, and general commercialization of the Grok chatbot. This investment comes at a time when there is more competition in the AI space, with federal and privately owned businesses seeking reliable and adaptive large language models. xAI is making Grok an alternative to the already launched and establishing popularity of OpenAI ChatGPT, particularly in those cases where a greater extent of ownership and customizable functions is needed. Your crypto news deserves attention. Key Difference Wire puts you on 250 plus top sites. Disclaimer: for information purposes only. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Fastenal hits $2 billion sales record. Fastenal company Nasdaq Fast reported fiscal 2025 second quarter results on Monday, July 14, 2025. Noting record quarterly sales surpassing $2 billion for the first time, with 8.6% revenue growth and 12.7% EPS growth to 29 cents per split adjusted share. Management highlighted sustained acceleration in contract customer signings, an increase in operating margin to 21%, and a ramp-up in pricing actions to address tariff-driven cost pressures. Management's guidance includes expectations for additional pricing actions in the second half of 2025 and double-digit sales growth in the second half of the year. Fastenal saw record contract momentum amid a sluggish economic backdrop. Contract customer sales in the second quarter rose 11%, now comprising 73.2% of revenue, up from 71.2% a year earlier, while Q2 saw 84 contract signings, outpacing prior quarters despite ongoing weekend market demand. Revenue from sites generating $10,000 or more per month grew by 11.6%. Since implementing these changes back in the beginning of 2023, our contract growth has increased from 4% in the 2022-2023 timeframe to 11.2% last year, and that momentum has continued as we move into 2025. In Q2, we saw 84 contract signings, well ahead of the last 2 quarters and honestly outperforming our expectations considering the current market conditions. Contract customer sales for the quarter increased 11% and now represents 73.2% of our revenues, up from 71.2% in the previous year. Jeff Watts, President and Chief Sales Officer. This step change demonstrates significant market share expansion and increased customer stickiness, providing Fastenal with greater recurring revenue visibility and resilience in the face of broader industrial sector stagnation. Supply chain adaptation and digital expansion strengthen Fastenal's competitive moat. Fastenal adapted its sourcing strategy in response to increased tariffs, directly importing more fasteners into Canada and Mexico to optimize landed costs. While digital channels now represent a record 61% of total sales, with e-business growing 13.5%, further embedding Fastenal in customer operations. Installed FMI Fastenal managed inventory, including vending RFID, device count rose nearly 11% year over year to exceed 132,000. To what we approach with tariffs and how we convey it. Our goal isn't to be the best organization at adjusting pricing. Our goal is to be the best organization at managing the supply chain for our customer and being agile to benefit them and their ultimate customers downstream on the most efficient supply chain to get them what they need when they need it. Dan Florness, Chief Executive Officer. Fastenal's agile, globally diversified supply chain and rapid digital adoption differentiated from peers, increasing switching costs for customers and deepening the company's long-term competitive advantage. Disciplined margin execution and proactive pricing underpin robust earnings progression. Operating margin increased 80 basis points to 21% in Q2 2025, supported by favorable price-cost effects and SG&A leverage excluding expanded bonus pools, and a 20 basis point improvement in gross margin to 45.3%. Management initiated 3 rounds of pricing actions, targeting a total 3% minus 4% price benefit by the end of the quarter. Cumulative actions are expected to escalate up to 5% minus 8% by year-end, dependent on tariff resolution timelines. During the second quarter, we implemented 3 separate pricing actions, which aim to contribute 3% to 4% of price by the end of the second quarter of 2025. The phased approach to this rollout resulted in 140 to 170 basis points of additional impact in the second quarter, with momentum building as we ended the quarter. Additional pricing actions will be necessary in the second half of 2025, with the potential to double the impact of pricing depending upon where the deferred tariffs ultimately settle and the pace and execution of our actions. Cheryl Lasovsky, Interim Chief Financial Officer, Chief Accounting Officer, and Treasurer. The company's disciplined cost control, coupled with assertive, transparent pricing to offset inflation and tariffs, positions it to defend profitability and preserve capital allocation flexibility, reinforcing the credibility of its multi-year growth and dividend commitments. Looking ahead, management expects additional pricing actions in the second half of 2025, potentially raising total price realization to the 5%-8% range, while reiterating confidence in achieving double-digit sales growth for the remainder of 2025 due to robust contract momentum and pipeline strength. Gross margin for 2025 is anticipated to remain approximately flat compared to 2024, subject to fluctuations in price-cost dynamics and the evolving tariff environment. Fastenal continues to target a year-end digital sales mix of 63%-64%, reflecting sustained investment in FMI technology and enhancements to Fastenal.com. Where to invest $1,000 right now? When our analyst team has a stock tip, it can pay to listen. After all, Stock Advisory's total average return is 1,047%, a market-crushing outperformance, compared to 180% for the S&P 500. They just revealed what they believe are the 10 best stocks for investors to buy right now, available when you join Stock Advisor. See the stocks. Stock Advisor returns as of July 14, 2025. This article was created using large language models (LLMs) based on the Motley Fool's insights and investing approach. It has been reviewed by our AI quality control systems. Since LLMs cannot currently own stocks, it has no positions in any of the stocks mentioned. The Motley Fool has no position in any of the stocks mentioned. The Motley Fool has a disclosure policy. Disclaimer: for information purposes only. Past performance is not indicative of future results.
I'm going to head off now. Time for me to go. I'm sorry about this. This is information that you need to hear. You must be from God, God. I'm into me sector. Goodbye.